parents. We need to have a webinar first with the parents exclusively, making them understand what is the need of this virtual interaction. It's not like watching TV or it's not like watching YouTube. It is the individual on the other side whom we call as a teacher, as an educationist, as guru, who is lending her or his precious knowledge via this laptop and via this connectivity. And it is not only about those blackboard teachings that your child takes back home. I sit with my child every day for the online school. So, as a parent, it is expected of me to contribute and participate in every activity that the school is running. Now, I have come across parents who do not wish to participate in that activity because they don't have time or they think it is not that important. Hence, I emphasize on this point again. It is the mindset of the parents that needs to be altered, because if we do not really convey to them the importance of this kind of learning, then we are definitely hampering the building of the future generation that we keep talking about. It is this foundation that we need to work upon. Your child may be in junior KG, or your child may be in fifth grade, or your child may be in 10th grade. There is nothing that stops the learning process. Your virtual interactions that happen on a daily basis are equally important as physical interactions. Of course, physical interactions have their own charm, but given the kind of situation, given the kind of scenario that we are in, we have to innovate and we have to think out of the box. And today, I feel our children should be doers, not listeners. Because tomorrow, after 20 years down the line, if there is another such disastrous situation, we need to teach them how to combat that situation because we have already gone through it. So, apart from the mundane curriculum that we concentrate on, there has to be an additional part that we involve in the mental building. That is why one of the subjects that is very close to my heart is strengthening your mind has become more important. And this pandemic era has shown us that there is nothing that beats the strength of the mind. Of course, physically, you may have a lot of challenges, you may have a lot of encumbrances, but if you're mentally strong, you're definitely going to be a strong parent and you're going to raise a stronger child. So, with this, I would want to end my talk. Thank you, Dr. Amit. I hope I have abided by the time limit that you gave me.
Pretty much, and thank you very much. You were very precise, to the point, and all those points that you made, I see of some great importance. So, and that is why you are what you are, by you wearing multiple hats, because in the brief time you were able to touch that the disruption in education which is happening. Good, that we should be thankful that we do have technology, laptop, computer, mobile, internet, softwares, and everything that we can continue to provide education. Think of, like, when the Spanish flu came and everything had to lock up, and there was the learning deficiency. And technology is certainly one way of delivering education, not the only way. There are multiple ways of, continue to impart knowledge. And certainly this has also given opportunity, created multiple opportunities. One of it, very important, is increasing parental engagement. Otherwise, one part of the concern which has been raised by schools and teachers at times is that parents think they have a very limited responsibility, that they have admitted the kid to the school, their job is done. Now it is up to school and teacher to do whatever make their kids the best in the world, right? So only they pay, and that's my responsibility is only of the payment. This entire thing also has made the process quite a bit transparent. Otherwise, before, what is happening in the classroom, you had no way to get to know. Only your kid, whatever 1% of what has happened could communicate. And here you can actually see the way teacher is teaching, what is happening inside the classroom, the participation and everything. And you feel more involved. So it is further more democratization of education happening intentionally or unintentionally. And now at the end, you have actually also given quite a bit indication of the future, talking about, let's think 20 years down the line. Deepak Madhokji also talked about it, that, There could be another virus in 2025, etc., etc. How are we going to be mentally prepared for this? And it also indicates towards the mental health. Now, that sets a pretty much good ground for our next speaker on the line, Kedia ji, Shri Subhash Kedia ji. And Subhash Kedia ji, the USP I would say is because he's not involved just with one school. He's helped multiple schools in Maharashtra, even in Gujarat, providing his knowledge about the law, regulation, helping them to improve their management, efficiency, everything. So it will be wonderful to hear from the rich experience of Kedia ji as to this, once again, the size of the problem, how schools were prepared, what they did, and ultimately what's the way forward that we see. Kedia ji, please, all to you.
Thank you very much. It's a very good move on the part of NISA to engage all the stakeholders to save the cause of education or how to proceed further in improving the quality of education. Before we start, we must pray for the early recovery of Kulbhushan ji. For he should become all right in a short time, as he's our leader. So without leader, nothing can move further. So we wish him early recovery. Regarding COVID-19, I think all the speakers have already expressed their views. In online education in the world, 77.84% children are taking online education. 77.84%. No one in the world, not a single leader, including our Prime Minister or XYZ, have spoken about the education sector. No leader has spoken. No leader has thought to give any relief to the education sector. Education sector is maintaining their existence at their own. Now, the question is that, as everybody explained, school are suffering, school have suffered, they are suffering. What are the solutions? How to oppose government? Whatever things we can do. I think that is the main thing we should confront. And it's very important, as Aksita said, that first important solution is to educate the parents. Unless parents of individual schools are educated, they are told what are the regulations, what are the school limitations, what school is doing. Nothing will happen. So first thing, individual school have to hold a meeting of the parents individually through online classes to educate them. This is very important to achieve the harmony, to achieve the financial stability. This is very, very important. I 100% agree with that. Second important thing, today we may ask the government for a moon. It's not going to happen. We know due to the demonetization, due to the COVID-19, government of India is bankrupt, state government is bankrupt. So there's no money with the central or state government to support you financially. Third important thing, now when state government are not in a position to reimburse you about the RT pending dues, where is the question of government of India or state government coming to support you, to give X amount of money to the parents? So let us ask only those questions, those help which beggar or bankrupt have can give to us. Asking more is not going to solve the problem, except we are wasting our time on the our demand on the government. Ask only those things which is practical. Now, why schools are facing financial problems? One of the major financial problem for the non-minority school is reimbursement of the RT fees. In Maharashtra pre-primary section, 60 crores are pending for which you are in High Court, Supreme Court. Similarly, maybe 200 crores is pending from the state government. They don't have money to pay. So we must take immediate action how to compel government to get the money. This is one part. And there's in my experience on 30, 40 years, neither central government nor state government, they understand the language of educators. They will work only on legal recourse. We have no option except to go to legal recourse. Online education, our institutions have done the best thing. They are giving the online education. In most of the states, it is being given free, except few states where they are charging. That is a great job done by the management of the schools. And best part is that teachers, I must quote you, Honorable Delhi High Court Justice, Chief Justice has said, teachers are this training. Teachers are doing a noblest cause of education. And nobody has applauded the teachers so far in my 40 years experience. UNESCO has said teachers are training themselves, doing the best job for the whole of the world. So this is the educators, teachers, they're doing such an excellent job. Regarding fee payment, state government are taking out the various GRs about the fee payment only to pacify the parents. So here, as a NISA, as an association, we have to see that these illegal GRs are taken to the court and good judgment is achieved. Good judgment is achieved. All the judgment, you must be knowing, all India, all the high courts and Supreme Court were flooded with the judge, court cases. Very good part, judiciary mind is very clear. Parents have to pay the fees. Number two, we will not stop online classes. The judiciary mind is clear. Only with a one rider, school should not charge sports fees, canteen fees, transportation fees, which is not an expense to that. So this is very balanced judgment of Honorable Supreme Court also, in the High Court also. And next very important thing we should ask government that by you have we are not asking moon from you. At least you can consider to give some relief to us under the power your power charges, water charges, municipal charges. Any state government can only give these three things. They're not giving, they are bankrupt, they will not give single paisa to you. So on these things, if we concentrate, the associations, all our association in Maharashtra, along with our guardian, the NISA, then only we'll be able to ease the pain of our schools. Otherwise, I don't think there's any other way to ease our pain. So this is my simple solution, and here we should remain united. And one request to NISA is there. Once you are dealing in a particular state, you must see that all associations get engaged. NISA should never work in isolation. Otherwise, we are weakening the NISA. We are weakening the NISA or guardian. So NISA is duty also that they must engage whether association is big or association is small. That you have to keep in your mind. It is not happening. I am very candid. It is not happening. So NISA must see that all the associations, big or small, taken into the fold. Then only will be able to fight the war and do some justice for the education. That much only wanted to share my views. Thank you very much.
Thank you very, very much, Kedia ji. Once again, with your rich experience, you have been able to bring multiple ideas on the table. I think, first of all, even I was not aware of this number. 77.84% children in the world currently are taking online education. This is a huge number. And if the education community, irrespective of private, government, rich, poor, whatever, if this is a huge number, if there has been conversion from just a physical world to a virtual world in a short duration of, let's say, 3-4 months time, I think it's a great revolutionary thing that has happened. So certainly our people have converted this crisis into an opportunity, and this fast-paced digitalization of education and school and activities and content and material and everything would be very beneficial. Um, the other thing rightly pointed out, no big leader so far. Everyone has talked about pandemic from health perspective and also economic crisis perspective, but it's a disappointment that no big leader so far has talked much from the education perspective and what to do to ensure that there is no learning crisis happening while the health and economic crisis continues. You also talked about the feasibility of demand while there is a crunch, financial crunch at the state level, at the state itself, and with the union government too. And teachers certainly are the big hero in this case to deal with educational crisis. And the due recognition has been done by the court too. The other good suggestion is that while we are talking about DBTs and all, this could work out in a long term. As a short term, we should also look at the what are the small or low hanging fruits in that sense. So could we request government to at least give a waiver from, let's say, municipal charges, property charges, multiple, commercial rate of electricity or water, etc., etc., and how they can support to deal with this crisis. And certainly another and continuous reminder, and we are thankful to KDRG, is about making state the partner in this entire process and continue engaged to understand um, the extent of the problem. So thank you very much, KDRG. I tried to give a quick summary of all that you talked about. Now, next we'll go to Kulbhushan ji, Dr. Kulbhushan Sharma, who is the president of National Independent Schools Alliance. Kulbhushan ji, can you do you listen to me? आपको मेरी आवाज आ रही है? So, Kulbhushan ji, so what I would request him quickly to do in, let's say, quick 5 minutes, we are already running behind the time, to talk about this Shiksha Bachao campaign, Save Education campaign, where our understanding is, once again, this pandemic has caused happen and how each one of us can contribute and participate. Sir, back to you.
अमित जी, मेरी आवाज आप पहुंच रही है?
बिल्कुल अच्छे से आ रही है सर।
5 मिनट में बात करना बड़ा मुश्किल है, लेकिन मैं पूरी कोशिश करूंगा कि 5 मिनट में मैं इस बात को करूं। जो अभी सभी पैनलिस्ट ने बात की, जैसे राजेंद्र जी ने कहा कि ये सेल्फ फाइनेंस स्कूल हैं, मधोक साहब ने बताया कि 60-70% स्कूल्स 1000 रुपए से कम में जो है बच्चे को एजुकेशन दे रहे हैं, जबकि मेरा मानना है अभी भी ये स्टैटिस्टिक्स, ये डाटा सही नहीं है। जो 70% स्कूल्स हैं, ये अगर 1000 रुपए से कम ले रहे हैं तो उसमें भी अभी इनका 50% लास्ट ईयर का बेड एड्स में चला गया है और जाता है। यदि ये स्कूल जो है 60 to 600 to 700 या 800 के बीच में एजुकेशन देते हैं। और जो ये एजुकेशन की सबसे बड़ी प्रॉब्लम क्या है कि हिंदुस्तान में कभी भी एजुकेशन को प्रायोरिटी में लिया ही नहीं गया है। आप इंडिपेंडेंस के बाद की बात देखें तो ये जो प्रॉब्लम है, ये जैसे बात आई है माइंडसेट की प्रॉब्लम है। और माइंडसेट की किसकी प्रॉब्लम है? जैसे आपने मनोज कुमार की पिक्चर देखी होगी, रोटी कपड़ा और मकान। तो हम बात किसकी करते थे? रोटी कपड़ा और मकान। शिक्षा की कभी हिंदुस्तान में बात ही नहीं कहीगी, जबकि रोटी कपड़ा और मकान ये शिक्षा से जुड़ी हुई चीजें हैं। अगर लोग अच्छे शिक्षित हो जाते हैं तो ना वो सिर्फ अपने लिए रोटी कपड़ा और मकान बल्कि देश के लिए भी नव निर्माण में एक बहुत महत्वपूर्ण योगदान दे सकते हैं। लेकिन शिक्षा को कभी भी प्रायोरिटी में नहीं लिया गया। तो इस पे सबसे बड़ी प्रॉब्लम रही है माइंडसेट की। और वो माइंडसेट की प्रॉब्लम देखो सभी को समझनी होगी कि क्यों हमने ये शिक्षा बचाओ अभियान शुरू किया, इसकी क्यों जरूरत पड़ी। जो हमने बार बार मैं ये कहता हूँ, नीसा एक विचार है कि नीसा के मन में एक विचार आया, कैसे इस देश को अग्रणी देश बनाया जा सकता है, कैसे इस देश के एक एक बच्चे को एक्टिव, अलर्ट, इन्फॉर्म्ड और 21st सेंचुरी का स्टूडेंट बनाया जा सकता है कि जब वो एजुकेशन लेकर बाहर निकले तो एम्प्लॉयबल हो। जो बात आती है कि आज इंजीनियरिंग कॉलेज से बच्चा निकल रहा है, एम्प्लॉयबल नहीं है, असर की रिपोर्ट्स आ रही हैं। तो ये सारा माइंडसेट में हम सब जिम्मेदार हैं। सबसे पहले है गवर्नमेंट जिम्मेदार। गवर्नमेंट ने कभी भी एजुकेशन को प्रायोरिटी में लिया ही नहीं। उसने रोटी कपड़ा मकान, गरीबी बचाओ, इन नारों में, इन बातों में लोगों को उलझा कर रखा, जबकि एजुकेशन को कभी प्रायोरिटी दी ही नहीं। और एजुकेशन में जैसे बधोक साहब ने बताया कि 1/7 में प्राइवेट स्कूल जो है एजुकेशन दे रहे हैं। और लोगों ने, जैसे राजेंद्र जी ने कहा कि चॉइस के स्कूल, चॉइस मिलनी शुरू हुई 90s के बाद, जो है चॉइस मिलनी शुरू हुई। लेकिन अभी भी बच्चों को चॉइस कहाँ मिल रही है? चॉइस की एजुकेशन तब मिलेगी जब एजुकेशन में डायरेक्ट बेनिफिट ट्रांसफर होगा। और इस पे 3 व्यक्तियों को, 3 पक्षों को अपना माइंडसेट बदलना होगा। सबसे पहले गवर्नमेंट को अपना माइंडसेट बदलना होगा, एजुकेशन को प्रायोरिटी में लेना पड़ेगा। आज ना पेंडेमिक में एजुकेशन प्रायोरिटी में है, ना एजुकेशन इंडिपेंडेंस के बाद कहीं भी प्रायोरिटी में रही है। कहीं भी आप दिखा दीजिए। जैसे अभी बात चल रही है कि 77% लोगों ने, केडिया जी ने बताया कि ऑनलाइन स्टडीज को जो है वो अपना लिया है। लेकिन अगर आप हिंदुस्तान का डाटा देखेंगे तो शायद ये 20 to 30% होगा। और वो भी उन लोगों का होगा जो लोग अवेयर हैं, जिनको अपने बच्चों की शिक्षा की चिंता है। यानी कि एक मेजर पार्ट आज भी शिक्षा से वंचित रह रहा है, और ये आजादी के बाद से वंचित रह रहा है। इसमें माइंडसेट सबसे पहले हमें ये बदलना पड़ेगा गवर्नमेंट को कि हर बच्चे को एजुकेशन में डीबीटी करके उसको उसकी चॉइस का स्कूल चुनने का अधिकार देना पड़ेगा। उसको फोर्स नहीं करना पड़ेगा। अब ये बहकाने का वक्त नहीं है कि राइट टू फ्री एजुकेशन, राइट टू क्वालिटी एजुकेशन एक बच्चे का हक है, और वो भी उसको अपने स्कूल चुनने का हक है। नंबर 2 का अधिकार है, मैं स्कूल संचालकों को भी कहूंगा कि अपनी चिंता हमें छोड़ देनी चाहिए कि मेरा स्कूल, इसका स्कूल। हमें चिंता करनी चाहिए जो स्कूल में हमारा बच्चा जो हमारे पास आया है कि किस प्रकार उसकी प्रॉब्लम सॉल्व हो। जैसे अभी केडिया जी ने बताया कि 70 करोड़ रुपीस अभी भी जो है एजुकेशन का, राइट टू एजुकेशन का जो है वो नहीं मिला है। यानी गवर्नमेंट के पार्ट में कितनी बड़ी एक गलती है। उसके बाद पेरेंट्स को भी एक बात ये समझनी चाहिए कि अगर ये पैसा नहीं आ रहा है तो इसका बोझ किस पे पड़ रहा होगा? रेस्ट ऑफ द पेरेंट्स पे। तो दूसरा, स्कूल संचालकों को भी बच्चों के लिए, जैसे हमने ये शिक्षा बचाओ अभियान स्टार्ट किया, अभी स्कूल संचालकों का रुख इसमें स्पष्ट नजर नहीं आ रहा है। यानी कि वो भी अभी शिक्षा के प्रति चिंतित नहीं है। उनका भी माइंडसेट अभी क्लियर नहीं है। हमने जो उनसे मांग की है कि सबसे पहले अपनी डीबीटी बदले, अपनी मांग प्रधानमंत्री के पास भेजें, या शिक्षा बचाओ अभियान की जितनी एक्टिविटीज हैं उनमें एक्टिवली रोल अदा करना शुरू किए, तो अभी भी प्राइवेट स्कूल्स का भी रोल उसमें शुरू उतना एक्टिवली नहीं हुआ। इसका मतलब माइंडसेट में प्राइवेट स्कूल्स के भी कमी है। वो भी बच्चे की चॉइस को अभी प्रायोरिटी देना नहीं चाहते हैं। उनको भी अपना माइंडसेट बदलना पड़ेगा। और तीसरा माइंडसेट बदलना पड़ेगा पेरेंट्स को। ये लड़ाई उनके बच्चों के लिए लड़ाई है, उनके बच्चों के शिक्षा के हक के लिए लड़ाई है। उनके एक एक बच्चे का हक बनता है क्वालिटी एजुकेशन पर। कि उनके बच्चे का हक बनता है कि वो अपने स्कूल को खुद चुन सकें, अपने स्कूल की चॉइस खुद कर सकें कि स्कूल में उनको बच्चा पढ़ाना है। ये उनकी चॉइस होनी चाहिए, ना कि उन पे कोई सरकार मर्सी दिखाए कि आपको हम फ्री एजुकेशन दे रहे हैं। और उस फ्री एजुकेशन का रिजल्ट पब्लिक को सोचना चाहिए कि असर की रिपोर्ट से सामने क्या आ रहा है कि 8th का बच्चा 2nd की पढ़ाई नहीं कर पा रहा है, ये एजुकेशन दी जा रही है आपके बच्चों को। तो इसके लिए कौन अपने माइंडसेट को बदलेगा, कौन अपने बच्चों के लिए लड़ेगा? तो ये हमें तीनों पक्षों को, सरकार को जगाना होगा, स्कूल संचालकों को बच्चों के लिए और शिक्षकों के लिए लड़ना होगा। स्कूल बनता है बच्चों से। जब बच्चे स्कूल में आते हैं तो शिक्षक तभी अपनी क्वालिटी दिखा सकता है, तभी वो शिक्षक महान भी कहलवा सकता है, तभी वो अपने बच्चों को जो है ट्रांसफॉर्म भी कर सकता है। इसलिए सबसे बच्चा इंपॉर्टेंट है और डीबीटी ही एकमात्र साधन है जो देश के अंतिम बच्चे को उसका राइट दिलवा सकती है। तो मेरा एक एक स्कूल संचालक से अभी जो है आह्वान है कि आप भी अपना माइंडसेट बदलें और शिक्षक भी अपना माइंडसेट बदलें और अभिभावक भी अपने बच्चों की इस लड़ाई में पूरी तन्मयता से कूदें, अदरवाइज वो चूक जाएंगे। जैसे अभी केडिया जी ने बताया कि 77% लोग ग्लोबली जो है ऑनलाइन एजुकेशन में है। इट मींस हिंदुस्तान में जो लर्निंग गैप पड़ रहा है, यही तो आज तक हमारे बच्चों तक पड़ता आया है। इसी को तो रोकना है, पेंडेमिक में इसको रोकना बहुत जरूरी है। अगर ये लर्निंग गैप हमारे बच्चों के अंदर गया तो इसका कसूरवार और इसका नुकसान किसका होगा? कसूरवार होंगे पेरेंट्स, हमारे एजुकेशनिस्ट, हमारे नीति निर्धारक, और नुकसान किसका होगा? इस देश के बच्चे का। इसलिए मेरा आप सबसे आह्वान है कि सभी शिक्षक, सभी स्कूल संचालक तुरंत शिक्षा बचाओ अभियान का पार्ट बने, तुरंत अपनी कम से कम डीपी तो बदले। अभी तक अपनी डीपी बदल कर ही हमने अपनी जो है कर्मठता नहीं दिखाई है कि हम शिक्षा बचाओ अभियान के साथ हैं, हम देश के बच्चे को डीबीटी का हक दिलवाना चाहते हैं, हम शिक्षक को सम्मान दिलाना चाहते हैं। तो मैं इन्हीं शब्दों के साथ सभी को आह्वान करता हूं कि सभी शुरुआत अपने माइंडसेट से शुरू करें और अभी से इस शिक्षा बचाओ अभियान का पार्ट बने, ताकि देश के एक एक बच्चे को डीबीटी दिलवाकर उसकी पसंद की शिक्षा का हक निशा के साथ दिलवाया जा सके, मिलकर दिलवाया जा सके। तो मैं धन्यवाद केडिया जी का भी करूंगा कि उन्होंने मेरी सेहत के लिए शुभकामनाएं दी। उनकी शुभकामनाओं के बाद मुझे लग रहा है कि मेरी सेहत में बहुत फर्क पड़ा है और मैं इसी प्रकार पूरे देश में आप सबके साथ मिलकर, और केडिया जी की इस बात का भी मैं समर्थन करता हूं कि छोटे से छोटे ऑर्गेनाइजेशन को भी साथ लेना पड़ेगा। तो इसके लिए मैं अपने सभी साथियों से रिक्वेस्ट करूंगा कि सभी मिलकर इस शिक्षा बचाओ अभियान को हम मजबूती दें, ताकि देश के बच्चे को जिस दिन हम हक दिलाने में कामयाब हो गए, उस दिन इस देश में शिक्षा की समस्या तो रहेगी रहेगी नहीं। ये कहावत है कि आप सोने की सड़कें बना लें, अगर आप लोगों को, बच्चों को शिक्षित नहीं करेंगे तो वो सोने की सड़कों को उखाड़ कर ले जाएंगे। अगर आप बच्चों को अच्छा शिक्षित कर देंगे, उनको अच्छा शिक्षा का हक दे देंगे, उसके बाद किसी सोने की सड़क बनाने की जरूरत नहीं है। वो अपने आप सोने की सड़कें भी बना देंगे और आपकी सड़कें सुरक्षित भी रहेंगी। इसी आह्वान के साथ मैं आप सबसे उम्मीद करूंगा कि आज आप तुरंत अपने डीपी बदलेंगे और शिक्षा बचाओ अभियान की हर एक्टिविटी में ना केवल सक्रिय योगदान देंगे, बल्कि लोगों को भी सक्रिय करके इस आंदोलन को कामयाब कर एक एक बच्चे को डीबीटी दिलाने का अभियान सफल बनाएंगे। जय हिंद, जय भारत, जय निशा, हरित ग्रीन, नमस्कार।
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Kulbhushan Sharma ji. You are certainly a great inspiration for all of us associated with NISA or in whatever capacity we are associated in the field of education. Also for all our audience. Why I'm saying so? Because he has got this great passion to kind of bring change in education system of the country. And while he launched this campaign, he had to do a little bit of running around. He also happened to be COVID-19 positive, so he has isolated himself for last 10 days. And while he is in isolation, continues to work so that the campaign reaches its core objective. So thank you very much, Kulbhushan ji. Your ideas and enthusiasm is inspiration to all of us. to all our panelists and the people, participants who have joined this Zoom conference. The Shiksha Bachao campaign, Save Education campaign that he talked about is majorly a digital campaign and very inclusive and decentralized campaign, where our idea is, he was talking about BP, a profile picture that we have created to change on all social media platform, and therefore by default, everyone who all are in support will be visible on social media platform to all. The second part of the idea is that we create information and educational material, etc., and through which we should be able to reach out to at least 1 crore individual in the country, just educating about the problem and the solution that NISA is advocating for, and at least getting 10% conversion from 1 crore to 10 lakh who would actively demand that kind of solution. So this is the campaign idea. How to join the campaign? If you look into the chat box, our colleagues have already posted the link of all our social media platforms, the phone numbers through which you can connect. So all the information is there in the chat box, and it is going to be a completely digital campaign. So you just have to take like 10 minutes in a day out and participate digitally, and it should, the idea should reach out. Now, thank you very much. The next part of the discussion, we should move forward. So in the first session, we briefly touched the pandemic, the problem due to pandemic, the solutions we could look forward to. Now, when we are talking about the education, at the moment, no one can ignore the national education policy, which has freshly come up. And coincidentally, on 29th of July, while this campaign was being launched, there was the day when the government also announced launching of the national education policy. This policy was in preparation for last 5 years. I first got to know of that government is working upon this in December 2014. I remember it, and then we actively was kind of engaging with the government, giving our ideas and suggestions also. Since then, so it has been more than 5 years since the planning and preparation and drafting work on new education policy started. And then, since then, 3 HRD ministers have changed. So this was first ideated by Srimati Smriti Irani ji, thereafter Prakash Javadekar ji, and now Ramesh Pokhriyal Nishank ji. So 3 education ministers, and around 3 education secretaries also have changed. Important part, 2 committees were created. One was TSR Subramaniam Committee, which first submitted its report to MHRD as the draft recommendation for national education policy. The unfortunate thing is Mr. Subramaniam, who was the chair of the committee, has also passed away. He passed away in 2018 itself. So this is a loss. I feel bad that something that he worked upon, submitted recommendation, worked hard, but still could not see fruit of his labor. The next committee was created was Kasturi Rangan Committee, who also submitted its draft recommendation, and finally government has announced the national education policy. So this is going to be to change the shape and nature of the education system as it is designed, with the major recommendations it has. Many of those are very promising recommendations, and many have raised concern and alarm as well. So now in the next panel, for roughly 40 minutes, we are going to talk about national education policy. And my first speaker will be Ms. Archana Rodrigue, who herself is an educationist. I have had a long association, and it has been privileged to know her commitment to education, managing the school, also being actively part of promoting not her own school only, but as a part of PUSMA leader, Private Unaided School Management Association leader. She also helps multiple schools with a common cause. So without further delay, Archana ma'am, to you, roughly 5 minutes. If you could talk about the opportunities, challenges, and way forward, keeping in mind the National Education Policy 2020. To you, ma'am.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Amit. And thank you for the wonderful introduction. I will not take more than 5 minutes. NEP does not require any further introduction, and I will kind of created the groundwork for this second session. So, from a purely, I would, and I'm sure these are quite self-explanatory because I'm sure all of us are belonging to the field of education, and including Akshata, who has been teaching. So I don't think these will be lost on any one of you. The first, the challenge when I look at the NEP, it's a huge document, very well written, very beautiful language. The first thing that comes to mind, the first challenge would be of funds. Where are we going to get the funds from? Because it brings the pre-primary right up to 12th grade under the ambit of governance. So how is it that we are going to ensure all children compulsorily get pre-primary education? Because already we have a backlog with the earlier policies, and children have not been, the school retention has not been, the objectives have not been met. So the first question is, in the COVID era, when there are other aspects which are more important, issues like national security, most importantly healthcare, maybe so many things which are at the top of the governance at the moment. So how do we find the funds to get this thing going? It's a very ambitious plan, it's very beautifully written, and I can see that there's a lot of takeaways from the other policies from the Western countries. But what about funds? That's the first question I would like to raise and raise awareness about. Like KDRG rightly said, in Maharashtra state, because I'm representing Maharashtra here, 60 crores are due to be paid to the schools already. So if the government wants to do charity, I would say it should be at their own cost, not at the cost. Like, there is no profiteering. Madhokji also clearly said there is no profiteering in the self-finance schools. Every week there has to be newer and newer schools set up to at 1/10 or 1/7 in Maharashtra cost then the government is paying for each child. So if we are doing that, then I think the support is needed from the government. Now, purely from a principal point of view, from an educationist or from a teacher point of view, first was a fund. Second is the less number of schools. That is the second challenge. Third challenge, I would say, coming from the NEP, would be the requirement of a huge pool of well-trained teachers. Where are we going to get that? Do we have the finances to train our teachers to the level to meet the objectives outlined in the NEP? Where are we going to get the training done for them? And fourthly, the most confusing aspect, because we are having a lot of discussions at the teacher level, at the principal level, is about the cultural bias which has been put in, that culture, Indian culture. No board or no education or organization or institute puts down the Indian culture in any manner. So I don't know why that is given importance. And along with that, the bigger confusion is the challenge of mother tongue teaching. I cannot imagine learning English, learning languages, or learning maybe science in my own mother tongue. We all have great pride in our mother tongue. India is a very, very multilingual country. But teaching these subjects in the mother tongue means employing that many teachers. So we require clarity on that. That's a very big challenge for schools. So these are the four challenges, starting with funds, funds, and funds again. So the four challenges I've laid down. Next, obviously, change is necessary. Change is an integral part of progress. We as leaders are not against change. If you don't change, progress will not come. And any change brings about revolution. And the revolution obviously will have people who speak for it, people who speak against it. The basic philosophy or the mindset, which I think Kulbhushan spoke very clearly, and also Akshata spoke about changing the mindset of parents. So when we change the mindset and we say, yes, we are ready to adapt to the change, what are the opportunities that we see in the NEP? Quick 4 points again in the opportunities. I would say, yes, it's a revolution. It's a renaissance of school education, long due, because like Akshata had said, we are following the British method of education for many years. Exactly what they had told us, very regimented, very rigid, no flexibility to switch between subjects, no flexibility for multiple intelligences of the child, or to give any kind of focus to the other creative talents which the child has. So that is a definite progress. And finally, I feel our school education system is coming on par with the Western countries on paper. Let me put that very much clearly. It's coming on par on paper. Now, implementation is another cup of tea altogether. Now, secondly, I would like to say the most beautiful thing about this NEP, I would like to highlight in exactly 1 minute, is the equity aspect and the inclusion aspect. Equity in the sense giving equal opportunities, learning opportunities to all children from all socioeconomic backgrounds, no gender biases whatsoever. Also, children with learning disabilities, special needs children, children who are gifted, which have been, in fact, one beautiful thing I read is that B.Ed specialization in gifted children is going to come in. I'd really look forward to that because India is a gifted country. We have a lot of talent which is untapped. So that is very good. I would say the inclusion philosophy is excellent. And thirdly, I would say this policy looks at realization of the dream of Skill India and Make in India. I think in the long run, when we are introducing vocational subjects by 2025, it is said that 50% children would be exposed to vocational skills, which is excellent, which means we are going to get job ready, no gender youngsters, which in the long run is going to work for us. And finally, I would say the most beautiful thing for teachers and for people who are working at a grassroots level is that the learning outcomes are given a lot of importance. Assessment patterns are going to change from the traditional methods. There's going to be lifelong learning. It's not going to be just a compartmentalized learning. There's going to be a focus on life skills. So it's excellent. Technology is also being given a lot of importance in this NEP. So opportunities are tremendous. That brings us to just one point about the way forward. How do we move ahead? Only one point here: funds. Exactly the point where we all get stuck at funds. I just heard yesterday that Maharashtra state has set up a committee to look into how this policy is going to come into practice. I hope they would first consider redressal of the issues, the 60 crores that are due to be paid to schools, redressal of the current financial issues which we are facing, and then we move forward to see how we can implement this policy. Only then it will be met in the true spirit of a social reform or an education reform. That is all I would like to say. I hope I've stuck to my time. Thank you very much, Nisa. Thank you very much, all of you, for representing Maharashtra on this platform. And power to all of you, power to all the teachers, all the educationists. Thank you very much. Jai Hind. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much, Archana ji. Multiple points. I know this is the most challenging thing I posed to you in the beginning of this panel discussion, like in 5 minutes talking about national education policy. I myself had a 2.5 hour long discussion, and I think I touch only, let's say, 20% of the national education policy. But certainly the good thing is bringing practitioners on this discussion is you get to also understand the implementation challenges. And I think this is the key point, that national education policy certainly has given recommendation which actually properly implemented has the potential to revolutionize education in many sense. But there are many roadblocks ahead. And one major part of the challenge is how it is going to be implemented. And you said, while financing the education is going to be one challenge. Here too, national education policy has recommended as in 6% of GDP to be spent on education, but which is also a provision which has stayed since the first national education policy of 1968. It is a greatly desirable, but how practically it is possible, that we will have to see. And you say that there is already roughly 60 crore rupees of RT reimbursement due in Maharashtra. So state capacity to fund the education too.
That is only pre-primary.
That is also only pre-primary.
For that we are in Supreme Court.
Yes, and this has also posed the challenge of when you are thinking of 21st century education, you will also have to come up with the 21st century way of delivering the change. It cannot that, your delivery mechanism, your ideas happens to be your, resources, your approach happens to be of old 19th century, while you are thinking of delivering the 21st century education. So this thing has to happen. And one major part of the problem is it would require a completely different kind of human capital. The teachers, the backbone of the education system, only with the old style teaching method and methodology and human resources may not really help it. Anyways, thank you very much, Archana ji. Next, I would go to our another esteemed speaker for the day, Dr. Radhakrishnan Pillai. And what to talk about Dr. Pillai, because he himself is so popular. He has written hundreds of articles. He and mainly known as a person who could think from Chanakya's perspective. Also associated with multiple organizations. He's done the intensive research on Kautilya's Arthashastra. So that is the core thing that comes with him. He has done TEDx talk, a motivational leader, an educationist, columnist, author of the book. What else I can talk about, giving a quick introduction to him. So Dr. Radhakrishnan Pillai ji, welcome to this platform. We are so glad to have you. Once again, this is a tough challenge I'm going to pose to you as well. In, let's say, roughly 5 minutes, if you could briefly talk about if there was Chanakya and how would he have seen the national education policy, that will be very interesting aspect to learn from you. All to you, sir.
Thank you, Amit ji. Am I audible?
Yes, you are audible, sir.
A warm good afternoon to everyone. Thank you, Bharat sir, Bharat Malik sir, for giving me this opportunity to speak to such eminent group of teachers, scholars, and future creators. 5 minutes is a good time to speak, actually, because if we keep speaking, nothing registers. So in fact, I'm glad that I'm going to be speaking in 5 minutes, but I'm going to be speaking on only 3 points. So there will be actionable 3 points rather than philosophical 3 points. So let me tell you, Chanakya was an educationalist, one of the persons who created the modern and the most successful Bharat during those days. As a teacher, I think we have a responsibility in a very different way. A quote says that a businessman has to think 1 year ahead. A politician has to think 10 years ahead. And a teacher has to think 1 generation ahead. So if you look at the policies that we are framing, it is not about just the current, but it's also the future generations. So the first thing, I've been very fortunate that I've been a very small part of the creation of the national education policy, because I'm a director at the Mumbai University, and I've been actually holding leadership programs and courses. I head the Chanakya International Institute of Leadership Studies, which is a part of the University of Mumbai at the Kalina campus. So I had a lot of rounds of meeting and a small input also, being called to Bangalore and various other places. So I'm sure many of you also have been participating. So I think I can very proudly say that the 3 tips that I'm going to give you is going to be very practical, and all the policymakers over here at private schools can actually look at actionables. The first things first is that my input to the national education policy has been only at the higher education level. So please limit me, I'm not the school level, so you know it much better, so you know the practical realities. But I want to emphasize on 3 points. Point number 1, government versus politics. Okay, it's a very important thing, so I'll talk about it. The second important thing is pre-pandemic and post-pandemic era. Okay, and the third important point is finances. So I think just 3 very important actionables. I'll start with actually the first thing about, the government and politics. We mix up both. Okay, politicians come and go, parties come and go, but government remains. So I think what is happening in our mindset, we're dealing with politicians and political parties rather than dealing with the government. It's a very important philosophy. We are not fighting or working with the politicians. It is very important to get this into our mind that the government is democratic and it has become bureaucratic. There is a difference between democratic governments and bureaucratic. So what is happening? We go to the politician, he says, oh, bureaucrat, oh, Saab batayenge. And the Saab is the one, as man rightly pointed out, the British policy, that it was administered. Understand this. So we have to go beyond administration of education policy to the extent of going to create a government system of education. So it can be private, it can be government. That's a complete different debate. So you have to understand one thing, that for working with the government, you should not get into recommendations. You should get into policy creation. There's a difference between recommending and policy creation. What is the difference? In a very quick way, like national education policy, everybody recommended, like it is a massive exercise. I think this is that, and it's a good debate and discussion, no doubt about it. But policy creation is a very scientific process where I think if you can involve some very good policy makers, you have to create a draft. And the beauty of a policy is that it becomes an act. Okay, an act has to be implemented. You don't have a choice. So it will go through a governance process. in which politicians are involved. But let us move away from that whole mindset of saying मैं इस politician को पहचानता हूँ, मैं इस party को जानता हूँ. Get into the government thinking. So please get into policy which becomes an act. And once act is there, we are all safe. So I think that's a different process. So we have to think, not recommendations. I would request all the people to come back with creating a policy document which can be actually minuted into a legislative assembly or the Parliament of India. Very important thing because it's a national platform. The second important thing is pre and post pandemic. I think that was something which all of us, let us look at this whole situation in one way. Imagine if the pandemic situation had not happened. So we would not be having this particular thing. The whole discussion would have been different. But now this has happened. It has shaken everybody, the government, the industry. I think every particular world, part of the world across the globe has been affected. So I would say take it positively because, the outcomes online, this and there are challenges. But the way I look at that, for the next 3 years, we have to work. It's not going to be an immediate quick fix. 3 years is going to be a teething problem. If you know how to sustain for the next 3 years, then you can make it ahead because nobody knows the right answer till the vaccine comes. And even after the vaccine comes, a lot of things. So I think all of us should build that muscle within us to understand these two words of Chanakya, Paristhiti and Manasthiti. Paristhiti means it's all, we are in the same boat. Okay, government, non-government, industry, non-industry. But Manasthiti, that we have to survive for 3 years. Don't close down your schools. Okay, there will be problems. And even if the new education policy is going to be implemented, it's going to be having teething problems. But remember, your commitment to education has to be with 3 years. So that's something we have to be very clear, and something new will emerge out of this. And I believe in positivity. The third point is finances. With the national education policy, let's now get into the policy. Very important that how much percentage of that private schools want. So the important thing is that it's a very framework and saying this much percent of GDP will go. I think one of our previous speakers told, roti, kapda, makan, shiksha ka to koi value hi nahi tha. Luckily, shiksha has been prioritized. But can you make a policy document and say, Act says this much percentage can come? Why am I telling you this, friends, is that we have to understand the private schools only know one funding methodology. And I would say purely from a cash flow perspective, the parents fund it. Can we have alternative cash flow models? So now we are saying, can the government subsidize it? Can the government pay? That's another method. But, can we have another methods like CSR? Can companies come and say 10 students I'll sponsor? There'll be mindset because, can private school actually give quality education? That's where our challenge is and we have to prove it. Okay. So we have to look at beyond parents and beyond governments. I like to stop with a simple example. I've been part of the Kendriya Vidyalaya policy making. It's a difference. Okay. Not recommendation, policy making. Education is such an important part of the society that society cannot live without education. So there is one area in, I think, Northeast. They went to Kendriya Vidyalaya, the whole, it's a government organization. We want a school. And typical government, hamare paas paisa nahi hai. You'll be surprised. They all came together and said, what do you want? Land? We will sponsor the land. What do you want? Infrastructure? We'll sponsor it. There are so many schools where the society came together and funded it. And the Kendriya Vidyalaya had to just send teachers over there. So you have to understand, my dear friends, that today, next 3 years is going to be a challenge of relooking at the education. It's not government versus private. It's probably the society which will have a new model. So my recommendation over here is that let's work together and let's not give it up just as a pandemic case, but the futuristic vision. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Pillai. So enlightening to understand things from also very deep perspective of Paristhiti and Manosthiti. And as you said, the next 3 years going to be a little bit of challenging because the entire system has to set with this new order. And something you picked up, which I have also been pointing out, that while we are, innovation is the key, right? We want innovation to happen in education system, innovation to happen in classroom, innovation for the teachers, innovation in methodology, innovation in terms of student thinking. But why are we not thinking much in terms of innovation in financing model itself? Why it has to stick to the old order? And therefore, we will have to think of multiple different ways. So just be innovative in your financing model also, and you will find some way or the other. The other important point mentioned was of the community engagement, taking this real life example from Northeast, and not just Northeast, multiple other places across India. We have experienced that society has a great value for education, and if the society is engaged. So difference between society and government, Samaj and Sarkar, right? So if when society values it, there will be social participation, community engagement, and that brings a lot of engagement, stakeholders coming together, participation, and that greatly improves the educational activities and learning outcome. Anyways, now once again, next I would move on.
Dr. Amit, can I take 5 seconds of your time?
10 seconds.
10 seconds, okay. So I want to thank Dr. Radhakrishnan. Is he still here with us?
Yes, he's here.
Dr. Radhakrishnan, hi.
Yeah.
Thank you for this. I'm currently reading it and I'm having a little fangirl moment right now because I'm actually making a lot of notes, as you can see. You have really enlightened the world, and this is the beauty of digital technology, where I'm reading your book here and I can connect with you. You're doing a fabulous job. I'm so honored to be connected with you on this platform. Thank you so much.
It's an honor. It's an honor, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
So this is the new power of technology we need to capitalize on, right? Anyways, I am moving to the next speaker for this panel, Rajinder Daimaji. Daimaji, certainly he comes from Pune, he represents a school, he's part of the management, but also most importantly, he is associated with IESA, which is Independent English Schools Association of Maharashtra. And through his schools, his association, roughly hundreds of schools are connected, and all of them together are thinking in terms of how do we together fix the mess of education system. So Daimaji, coming from your rich experience and national education problem, the challenges you see, the opportunities that you see, and what's your recommendation as a way forward? All of that in quick 5 minutes. Sir, all to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Amit, and welcome our NISA President Kulbhushan Sharma also, and all panelists and participants. Good afternoon to everyone. For new education policy, if we think, we have to study and evaluate what are the major issues and failures of present policy. I am audible?
Yes, you are audible.
Okay. Yeah. So what are the present failure of present education policy? And as a school leader, what I have experienced last 13-14 years, the three major failures are the strong government control over the schools. They have not been given free hand. The Act supersedes all previous existing acts. Even then, the government or local authorities, they were implementing the SSA or other regulations and all this. So if whatever we are implementing, it should be clear. One example I will give you. In RT at present, the fee limit is 17,400. But there are thousands of schools in Maharashtra which are, for even them, the all rules and regulations are same. हमारा गवर्नमेंट को बोलना है कि जो government should motivate them. They should not implement all the rules and regulations. Another issue is with the political interference. Now you see, at present we have tremendous political interference or in an existing policy, and it is continuing in same new education policy. In new education policy, there are now five committees, and even political interference will be more. In school management committee, now what they are recommending, one local authority, politician, right? Suppose taluka level, gram panchayat or gram sevak will be part of school management committee. Nagar sevak or local corporator will be the part of SMC. What this indicates? ये indicate करता है क्या interference बढ़ने वाला है. हमने न्यू एजुकेशन पॉलिसीज में बहुत से बाहर के आइडियाज लाए, सब लाइक मल्टीपल एंट्री, मल्टीपल एग्जिट, such type of we have brought. But regulatory, what about regulatory? हमने खरीदे, हमारे पायलट को 6 महीने के लिए बाहर जाना पड़ा ट्रेनिंग के लिए, फ्लाई करने के लिए. हमने पॉलिसी तो लाया है, लेकिन we have changed the regulatory bodies for that. That is the important. We have changed the mindset of regulatory government and bodies. इसके लिए हमें ये करना चाहिए कि स्टेट लेवल पे फॉर प्राइवेट स्कूल्स के लिए एक सेपरेट अथॉरिटी रहना चाहिए, सेक्रेटरी लेवल पे सेपरेट बॉडी रहना चाहिए. जो ये नहीं तो क्या रहता है, जो गवर्नमेंट के जो स्कूल्स है वही रूल्स हमारे अप्लाई होते हैं, छोटे छोटे रूल्स. तो ये मेजर इशू है. दूसरा एक मेजर इशू है करप्शन. बिकॉज ऑफ कंट्रोल एंड रेगुलेशन, ट्रेमेंडस रेगुलेशन, करप्शन काफी है. थर्ड इशू है फ्रीक्वेंट एकेडमिक चेंजेस. आप देखिए, अनुभव हर एक ने किया होगा, स्टेट गवर्नमेंट अगर बदलता है, पार्टी बदलती है, तो इमीडिएटली दे चेंजेस द सिलेबस. दिस शुड नॉट हैपन. ये हमें कहीं तो भी चेंज करना पड़ेगा. ये 3-4 इश्यूज है जो एड्रेस होना चाहिए. ऐसा नहीं तो सिर्फ रेगुलेशन, ये न्यू एजुकेशन पॉलिसी ऐसा नहीं होना, नया ये और बाकी पुराना ही सब ये. दूसरा मैं यहाँ करेक्शन करना चाहता हूँ, मोर नंबर ऑफ पेंडिंग आरटी रिएम्बर्समेंट. इवन लास्ट ईयर का गवर्नमेंट ने जो आरटी अमाउंट है पर स्टूडेंट, वो भी आज तक फिक्स नहीं किया है. 1920 का इट इज मोर देन 700 करोड़. गवर्नमेंट्स व्यू क्या कितना उदासीन है गवर्नमेंट एजुकेशन के प्रति. ये गवर्नमेंट को कहीं ना कहीं पॉलिसी के साथ खुद का माइंडसेट भी चेंज करना पड़ेगा, उनको फ्री हैंड देना पड़ेगा. आप एक एग्जांपल ले सकते हैं. 20-25 इयर्स पहले जब लैंडलाइन था, बीएसएनएल और सिर्फ लैंडलाइन था, व्हेन इट वाज ओपन्ड, it was free for all and it was even affordable for all. So there should be less control over schools. Schools should be given free hand in new education policies. Many in their state policy, that also we have to study. Secondly, in the last I thanks wish recovery and fast recovery. Thank you, Amit ji.
Thank you very much, Daimaji, for quickly summing it up. And yes, all of us agree, and therefore this webinar is so relevant that we know, well, the policy, formulation, idea, visioning, all of that exercise is required, certainly will help us do things better, should set the direction for the country and for education system as well. But also it has to meet the practical challenges. And therefore it is so important, enlightening, heartening to listen to people like you who are at the practicing field, right? Who can look at the policy, understand the vision, at the same time look at the grassroots reality and see the challenge. And therefore, now next thing we have to do is how are we going to do this bridging of gap? How are we going to communicate and work together, bring all stakeholders, including government, and we say what should be the way forward. So basically, you highlighted the problem in terms of that's a major issue. I don't know when and how it can be solved, is the control. And this goes with the long mindset of the government as well, because, you know, the private sector always have antitrust sentiment. So you don't really trust everything that private sector is doing. And therefore, how to win that trust as well. And therefore, the government also has a reason to not to be so antitrust, and therefore not to control too much, give more liberty. And I am of a strong view that education needs to be liberated. Until it is liberated, it cannot liberate individuals and students and knowledge and people involved in it. So that's one thing. You took example for Right to Education Act as to how it was also a well-intentioned policy, but created a lot of challenge practically. All of this, we are seeing a change in the education, but at the same time, we are also experiencing increasing corruption in education segments. So this is also one thing that has to be understood. And we know, this is one of my favorite dialogue: with the change of government, the color of history textbook changes. So the academic curriculum and everything, whether this also has to be come to more to educationists rather than just, I mean, I'm saying government, but government also who is led by political parties and bureaucracy. And it has its own limitations. So not just to criticize, but we'll have to find a way out. Anyways, so this is where I also end up formally our discussion on new education policy. Certainly it's a great piece of document. You read it and it will be hard that one will not be impressed with this document, no matter what in challenges we identify, but at least there are some good ideas put together. So we'll work it on. Next and finally, to wrap it up, this wonderful day of talking about pandemic, talking about the Shiksha Bachao campaign, talking about the national education policy. Finally, and most important person who works quite a bit in the background. He's very effective. He is the real entrepreneur who knows how to pull things together and he's also in the background helped us, help NISA, help IESA, help PUSMA, all of us to kind of create and come up with the digital Yatra part of Shiksha Bachao campaign in Maharashtra. So I thank Bharat Malik ji and invite him to present his note of thanks for this wonderful webinar.
Good morning and Nisa Namaste to all of you. Today, I think, is a very important day where we got different people from different fields who came on this platform and have shared their perception on the most important subject that we are talking about. I'm so happy that every speaker came with a right perspective and has shared in a minimum time of 5 minutes and have given their wonderful ideas which can be taken forward for further action. I start and thank Deepak ji, our own Deepak ji Madok, who has that experience and who gave us his insight and which is very valuable and it will be taken forward. Then we have our own dear Rajinder. One doesn't have to speak much about it, so no thanking. You are a part and you have done a wonderful thing of bringing all the people to this platform. Akshata ma'am, I'm impressed by you with your ideas and the way you explained the parent perspective. How does a parent think and how we all have to get connected to parents so that we can bring things forward and there is a communication that happens. The real thing is that what is very important, the trust level in the community has shaken. And because of the trust level which has shaken, there's a lot of doubts. And because of a lot of doubts, things are not happening in the right manner. I'm very happy that you brought in that there should be a dialogue, there should be communications, and we can sort it out things. So it's a great learning and we are going to follow this. Then another important thing is we have our own Radhakrishnan madam who came out and in a very short 5 minutes, gave her perspective. And she raised a very important subject that says, Paisa kahan se aayega, fund kahan se aayega? Because without the funds, things cannot move to the next level. Very right, very correct. And I'm thankful to you also. And then comes our Radha. We call him Radha and we call him a man who can give a lot of insight. I request, Radha, we want a commitment from you that we have another big session where we can work on the policy making that you said, which is important, and to see how we can make things more relevant today in the community, in the society, which is very important. Damaji is asked, and he also gave a very important factor, and he took away my favorite subject, how autonomy of private schools are killed. And because it is killed, we said this society that we are bringing this new NEP where we will have the glory of this great nation, India. And when we talk about the great nation of India, we know the Gurukul system. In Gurukul system, the Rajas used to send their child to a guru, to his ashram to learn. There were no question asked. But today, if the child comes to your school, forget about the gurus, for every minute, your question, even if you touch the child like that, you are in a right place. So the situation is, you have a policy, you make any number of policy, the policy according to me has no relevance unless you have will to do it. And will can only come when you have a trust. The society level, trust level has gone. I can only take 3 beautiful examples, which I normally like to speak. In last so many years, corruption has been such an important factor. One of the chief minister of Haryana is in Tihar jail for teachers' ghotala. Last month, I got a video. A teacher in UP is working for 18 schools and she draw a salary of 1 crore. Tell me, where did the 1 crore come from? That means one teacher working in multiple schools and the money coming into her kitty. The money cannot come to her kitty unless Babus and the entire system is into it. So there is a system, and the system is so beautifully designed. And then you said, Radha said, there are Babus. I swear I met the Babus of Maharashtra. When I asked them, please give me the money, I don't want to name her right now. She said, I have no money. And he said, can you take 50%? Damaji was there. I said, sir, ma'am, no problem. Can you reduce the salary of yours and your staff at this moment when you have already incurred the expenses? She had no answer. She looked at me and said, get out. The question was, the policy makers do not know the ground level reality, what is happening in the system. And the reason is, all these things are created more and more rules, more and more controlling, and more corruption. Believe me, if you want RT money reimbursed, that also 50%, 2 years back, there is 3% you have to give it to the system. So you'll have to give it 1, 2, 3. So the money goes and your check comes after 2 years, and then you say, Mera paisa mujhe mila. So when you are going to make a system, and when the Chief Secretary of Education says, I don't have money, what do? So when you make a policy, make a beautiful documents, but if you do not have the will, and if you do not have the funds, like Kedia just said, for 60 lakhs of pre-primary reimbursement, we are in Supreme Court. And now we have to spend so much of money to get justice. If I have to spend money for my dues and for my justice, think parents, whose money is that? That money is also parents' money, which I spent in High Court and I spent in Supreme Court. So parents, it is high time that this program, which was designed, Save Education Campaign, it talks about saving the child, saving the teachers. And I want to give my salute to all the teachers of this great nation. At this moment, they have worked day and night. They were the first learners. In this COVID, I salute the one advantage of COVID, that all of us have forgotten who I am. We have become a first level learners. The teachers were the first people to adopt learning. They learned the process. They trained themselves. We trained the parents. We trained the children. And believe me, all of us who are sitting here, you touched your computers at the age of 18, 19, 20. Now 2.5 years, 3.5 years, and 4.5 years child is on computers, muting himself and learning. See where we are going to reach. We are going to reach to a level where if this policy, if it is framed in the right spirit and with the right kind of mindset, we can achieve it, provided you give autonomy, and autonomy can only root out corruption. Otherwise, I know when I go to Mantralaya or I go anywhere, Sahib, मला ही rule बद्दल काय बोला ना. You know what they said? ही दुसऱ्याची फाईल घेऊन जा, मला ही माहित नाही. When 30 years old things are not known to you, the new education policy will come to digest that policy and to implement that policy. I say it will take 10 years or more because it's very difficult to implement things. And to implement things without money, believe me, it is next to impossible. I would also like to say I'm very positive about it, and I want to salute another great president of Russia, Mr. Putin, when he said that COVID medicine is coming, the vaccine is coming. And he came out with a suggestion that first benefit will be given to doctors because doctors are going to save life. And the second person on the top priority was teachers. Why teachers? Because he said the next generation will survive if teachers are saved. Are we really concerned about our teachers? Teachers not getting their salary, 50%, 30%, 20%. And there's a Narabaji, and we're talking about how are we going to save our teachers? If my teacher, if they go away out of the system and they go into selling kanda, batata, kela, and all these things, a different business, where will I get my teachers? And if I don't get my teachers, how will I implement the new education policy? Policy can only be implemented by the right kind of people. And we also know how teachers are selected, how B.Ed and D.Ed is done in this country. If you have the money, I give you the degree. So are we going to change our mindset and the corruption level? So I personally feel what is important is to change that system. I speak about honesty. I speak about good values. And we all talk holistic learning. But end of the day, what happens? I'm a part of the system. And all that moral values and all the moral things we talk, it's only on paper. Reality is down very different. So if you want to bring a change, you will have to change your mindset. You will have to address these issues. And then and only then we can make this great nation, I'm proud of it, to a superpower. And I thank you all for a wonderful time you all gave us and your inputs. That was very good for us. And this is the beginning in Maharashtra. We'll have more and more webinars and we will take things forward with such a wonderful team. And we'll have more people for the mission. Thank you. Thank you very much to all of you.
Amit ji, just one
Thank
point
you.
I want to.
20 seconds to Rajendra Daima ji.
सर एग्जिस्टिंग ऐसा पॉलिसी है कि शायद स्कूल्स को जो डॉक्यूमेंट लगता है चालू करने के लिए उससे ज्यादा डॉक्यूमेंट लगता है हमें लिकर इंडस्ट्री से ज्यादा डॉक्यूमेंट देना पड़ता है ये फैक्ट है फॉर ए नोबल कॉज और नोबल रीजन वी आर स्टार्टिंग स्कूल्स टू मच डॉक्यूमेंटेशंस आर रिक्वायर्ड एंड टू मच कंट्रोल इज देयर इतना कंट्रोल लिकर इंडस्ट्री पे भी नहीं होगा ये मेरा बोलना है
कितना
ये माइंडसेट चेंज होना चाहिए
plus vitamin M.
Okay.
Plus vitamin M.
Yes.
Yeah.
Good. Thank you very much to kind of say what Daima ji was talking. The Center for Civil Society, where I'm also associated, did a study documenting all the licenses and process, and they found that roughly more than 140 kinds of documents and license process approvals are required to open a school, certainly, which is much more than, you can set up a liquor industry. But anyways, we have already exceeded the time. I won't take much time. Thank you to all wonderful people. Thank you to all the participants. It's Friday and certainly it's working day, and still we have this more than 100 people attending this webinar. Also, this was live on Facebook and YouTube, and I see people are watching there as well. The entire video recording will be available, and therefore those who have not participated as well can watch the entire discussion later on. At the end, I would also like to end this thing with a positive note that while we are demanding and running this campaign and praising or criticizing, and this may be a long-term demand, for a short-term demand, NISA has established a NISA Care Fund, wherein we are asking for people to contribute small amounts of, let's say, 51 rupees, 101 rupees, whatever is your capacity. And this entire money, 100% money, what we are going to do is identify the teachers or students who are in immediate financial crisis. So we know that there are schools who have not been able to pay salary to teachers, or schools are shut down. I know personally that school has been shut down and people have become unemployed, and teachers, teacher that who is at the moment selling bananas on the street. So through this NISA Care Fund, we are going to identify such people who require immediate support. They cannot wait for a month or 6 months or a year for this policy formulation and all to happen. So we are raising fund. Our idea is to make it crowd-funded. We have not even approached to any CSR fund, etc., which could come up as a later. But mainly we want people to participate in this campaign. You can also, so this is a small portion in NISA Care Fund, you can contribute smallest amount. And this is our guarantee. There will be no administrative costs, etc., which will all be met by NISA, other funding model. This 100% money will be given to people who require the help immediately. On this note, on this appeal, I thank all my panelists, all participants who joined us on Zoom, Facebook, YouTube, wherever. Thank you very, very much. You have a wonderful day ahead.
I just last thing, I want to thank that NISA team which has been working behind the curtain. Thomas and all have done a wonderful job of bringing up to this platform. I thank you all, the NISA team. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Take care. Have a good day.